Welcome to Silent Discographer, a show where we explore bands. Wait, no, that's not what this is.
I almost did that same bit.
It just occurred to me like 10 minutes ago. I was like, there's no other way to introduce this show. No, of course. This is Time Extend, a podcast all about racing games. I am Adam Ismail. Normally I'm joined by Brendan Rorison, but Brendan unfortunately isn't here. We're thinking about him. He's here in spirit. He's always here in a way.
Brendan, I miss you and I love you.
Brendan's not here, but who is here?
Who's asking?
I can't. I don't know what to say, man. I'm not. We just started. I'm not loose enough. I didn't warm up, you know.
How many times do I need to guest on this show? Is that what it is? I'm like, I can intro myself now. It's like when your friend comes over and you like offer them like, you know, food or drinks or whatever, but then eventually after they've come over enough times, it's like, you know where all that crap is. Just get it yourself. It's fine.
I mean, everyone knows who you are, and if they don't know who you are, then they should go find out. But no, of course.
At this point, I'm washing my own dishes in your house.
Look, it's honestly the most I think that shows a level of respect and trust that goes beyond anything. I mean, the first time, we're saying this off air, the first time that you were on, which we still haven't revealed your name, so we should just freaking do that right now. You're Andrew goddamn Elmore. You told me once I pronounced your name. I was pronouncing your last name wrong, and I wasn't.
Only time in my entire life that anyone has pronounced my name wrong.
How am I saying it?
You were saying Elmore like it's like got a space in there and is of some kind of like Latin descent, and it's not. It's just Elmore. It's very boring.
Yeah. No, I didn't even realize I was doing it. But
it's all good.
Look, you're here because you, beautiful soul, decided to make an album of music, a music album with songs on it, 31 songs, all about racing games. Well, not about racing games, inspired by racing games. It's right there on the cover, and I'm already messing it up. And it is called...
Stay on brand. Read the copy out.
It is called Digital Motorsport, and it came out... We're recording this a couple days after it came out. Came out on Friday. This is Sunday. Yep. And I've listened to it a bunch of times. This is the...
I'm so sorry.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. This is the follow-up to Real Racing Roots 2019. Right?
Yeah,
in a way.
Which is how we met.
Exactly. So yeah, one of the earlier episodes of Time Extends, probably within the first 10 or 20, I can't really remember, but you came on, and this was when Real Racing Roots came out, and had you on. I didn't know who you were. I don't know even how I came across the album, but I discovered it, and immediately was like, this person is making my dreams come true, and we need to have him on the show.
Aw.
And I was really scared to talk to you, but you are not an intimidating person. You just, I was just like, I don't think we had ever had a guest on Time Extend at that point. So this was like a big moment. This was a big
had a
deal.
few. I don't think I was the first one. Because I went through, when you asked me, before I responded, I went through and downloaded and listened to every single episode that you guys have posted so far.
Okay.
Partially, first and foremost, to make sure I wasn't going on some weird, like, secret Nazi podcast. Make sure that, like, you guys weren't, like, Tories or whatever, but...
well, look, Bren's the Tory. I'm not. I mean, I have nothing.
Oh, no.
No, he's not.
Don't slander him when he's not here to defend himself. But yeah, it was half that and then half like, what? Someone just finally started a podcast about racing games? That's great. I want this in my life. And it turns out it was great and continues to be great. Congrats again on hitting 50, by the way.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's... that is how we met. Somehow... I feel like you said someone linked you that album at some point. Like,
Someone linked me. There's a good chance it was Fernando.
So was it Fernando?
Fernando, who was
think it
the
was
Slightly
Fernando.
Mad Studios Project Cars.
Cheeky Nando's, as they call him.
Yeah, he's the Project Cars community manager. It might have been him because he's always got his ear to the ground,
To the tarmac.
to the tarmac, the finger
He's
on
out
the
there
pulse
with a paint
of
can,
Yeah.
painting dicks on the Nürburgring.
So yeah, you came on. That was awesome, and then we became friends, and now we have another podcast, which is called The Silent Discographer. That is all about music, except for the many times I make racing games references on it.
Sometimes it's about music, and sometimes it's about how much time the bassist from Slow Dive spent playing with a 32X.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the other show we have. So this is kind of a worlds are colliding here, and I just wanted to have you on because Digital Motorsport is great, and I don't even really have many questions to ask you. I just we're just gonna freaking shoot the shit and just see what happens. Sure. I guess the most obvious place to start probably is how did this come about? You did Real Racing Roots 2019, which a lot of, because there's a secret cult of Ridge Racer fans on the internet that nobody really knows until a piece of media is released, and then they all just they come out of the woodwork, and it's
there are
amazing.
dozens of us.
Exactly. And everybody freaking loved it. And then that was 2 years ago. So was it you've told me a little bit about this, but it wasn't I'm going to do another racing game album. Things just kind of went that way, right?
Yeah, this wasn't this was not a decision that I made. Basically, a little bit after I put out Real Racing Roots, I started commuting a lot. I was living in Tacoma and working in Bellevue, and it was about a 3 to 3.5 hour commute each way. So I did not have any energy to do or make anything. I really, really wanted to follow that album up because I felt like I could do better. But I just did not have it in me for a long time. And slowly here and there, I would plink around with little ideas or whatever when I just needed to get something out of my system. And or sometimes I would be in the shower and get a melody hook stuck in my head, and I'm like, okay, I just need to keep whistling this until I can get out, dry off, throw some pants on, and go record a guitar track really quick so I don't forget this, which is how 24 Hours in France came to be, and a few of the others. But thanks, buddy. But yeah, generally I was I wanted to make just racing jazz in general, and I still do, because I didn't actually accomplish anything close to what I sort of set out to do. What I really want to do is get a bit more explorative and do stuff that's a little bit closer to the music you'd find in Sega GT 2002, or Test Drive Le Mans and stuff like that. And there's a little bit of that in here, I think, but I really wanted to do more of that, and it just was not working. I did not have every time I would try to sit down and write something, I was kind of using my DAW Logic to as my writing tool, basically, which is not something it's very good at. And so a lot of what these songs how they came to be was just cycling through different synth patches or whatever and finding something that sounded interesting and then stacking a bunch of weird effects on it, and then or playing with arpeggiators, and then suddenly a hook is born or whatever. So a lot of these all just kind of came together by accident, and I was a lot of these sound like different racing games. So I went into each of them and tried to kind of drive a little bit harder, no pun intended, in that direction. And so I was okay, yeah, what if I just, instead of laser focusing on one aesthetic like I did for Ridge Racer 4 with that last record, what if I just did whole bunch of songs that kind of are taking cues and inspiration from a whole lot of different racing games, because there's definitely a like style of music that you hear and associate with motorsports. Like when I say racing jazz, I'm referring to when people take like acid jazz and mix it with drum and bass, and like there's a lot of like silly guitar harmonies because of, you know, like years of Top Gear using that Allman Brothers song or whatever. But like there's a sound that you hear and it's like, yes, this is motorsports to me. But I wanted to get a little bit weirder. So there's a little bit of like trying to capture like sounds of old like 90s arcade hardware in here.
Yeah.
I actually have I used my tax return to buy some synthesizers and drum machines and a lot of hardware. And I have some old Roland synth brains from the early 90s on a slow boat coming over from Japan that will allow me to get much, much closer with that stuff. So maybe I'll be able to do a better job of that in the future. But anyway, long story short, I was not able to really do what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do? And what I could do was just make a whole bunch of really weird stuff that's like loosely inspired by a bunch of different racing games in here. So that's what happened. And then at some point I was like, I probably have about an album's worth, right? And then I went and started like taking inventory of my working files on my computer. And I was like, oh, I have a lot of these. Oh boy. Okay.
This is what they would have
Sure.
called back in the day a double album.
Probably. Yeah. You're not fitting this one on a mini disc, unfortunately. Maybe a high MD, but those are expensive. So yeah, I know, thankfully the response has been really, really overwhelmingly positive, and that makes me feel very good that I was able to make something that people like and enjoy. But it's like, I don't feel like this is as a whole as good as the last record, but everyone else is telling me that I'm wrong. So I'm just glad that they like it.
Yeah, I think what it is it just feels like obviously there was a concept and there was a singular inspiration for Real Racing Roots, whereas this by nature obviously is going all over the place, and I think that kind of makes it more sort of accessible in a way, because I mean, yes, we've established that the Ridge Racer fans are legion, but you know, being a fan of, if you like Ridge Racer, you
legion.
probably, if you like Ridge Racer, you probably like other racing games too, and lots of people dabble in this genre in some way, shape, or form. And I mean, there is a song referencing or inspired by a game here that almost everyone has played. Like, you know, whether it's they're, you know, in an arcade and they happen to play Daytona or Mario. I mean, there's a Mario Kart song here, so like it kind of touches everything, right? So I feel like that's probably why people are maybe gravitating towards it so much off the bat. I mean, I thought the last album was great. This one, I think it is just like so weird, and it like changes style so much, but in a good way, that it's just surprising, and that just makes it a lot of fun.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, there's definitely some deep cuts in here. Like, no one played Speed Kings. Not even in Japan did anyone play Speed Kings. So
I totally forgot. You actually informed me that game existed, and I already forgot what it was. I think I assumed that was something else.
Yeah, that's a Japan-only PS1 game that's kind of Wipeout adjacent. It's made by Konami, and it takes place in the Snatcher universe.
Wow.
It's in Neo Kobe in 2045.
That went in and out of my brain so quickly, because I remember you were like, oh, it's just Speed Kings. And I was like, oh, is it this game? And I brought up a completely different game.
Yeah,
also
you sent me a screenshot of like I think it was a GameCube screenshot or a cover image that said Speed King, singular. And I was like, nope, close, but not quite. Which is when I went in and added the phrase Neo Kobe 2045 into the title. It was after you sent me that. It's weird. The titling on these is different on different platforms.
Yes.
So like the ones that are on Bandcamp is what I consider like correct. But when I submitted it to Sounddrop, who's distributing it to all the other like storefronts and streaming services and all that crap, they were like, you can't just type things weird. You can't mix languages. You can't put brackets in here and capitalize things in weird spaces.
Kanji.
So, yeah, like there's no hiragana on Spotify. I mean, there is, but they wouldn't let me. So it's Just I had to simplify everything out a whole lot, and it's a little bit less stupid, which is unfortunate. But here we are.
I mean, it comes through. It's funny because there are some songs like, where, like for example, the Mario Kart one, 200cc. It has like a very similar like progression in the beginning to like the Ridge Racer song, Ridge Racer. So I think I like immediately was like, oh, this is the Ridge Racer song, and then I look at the title, I'm like, no, it's not the Ridge Racer song. I actually going through this, like you had told me a couple of like 5 album or song titles because like I was like I need to know a few. But then as I was listening the first time, I didn't want to spoil it for myself. I just wanted to go song by song and then just like listen and then see what it was. And it's so cool because the cuts are so deep. There are some here I'm not entirely sure what they're supposed to reference, so I will ask you about them.
Sure.
What is Racing Gadgets?
Gadget Racers, which is the North American name for the PS2 Korokyu game.
Oh, okay.
Or one of the PS2 Korokyu games. And a lot of these are not actually, like, they're not necessarily meant to sound like the music in those games the way that I did with the last album. They're just, a lot of them are just kind of inspired by the vibe. Like, there are tracks in here called Underground and Underground 2, and those games have fully licensed soundtracks, but my little experiment here was what if they didn't, basically. Like, how do I...
And it turns out they're better. They'd be better if they...
I don't know about that. I don't have Snoop Dogg on here, so...
All right, the one Snoop song was pretty good, but I ain't going back to the rest of the Underground soundtrack. I'll say that much. Those are actually some of my favorites here. Underground 2 especially is really, really freaking good.
Those are both me trying to do my best and also sloppiest impression of Girl, GRL.
Okay.
Just like, all right, those were... Realistically, what it broke down to was like half in my head I'm picturing like, okay, early to mid 2000s like street racing scene, like Fast and Furious, and then also what would Blade kill a bunch of vampires in a nightclub to?
Yeah.
Like
that makes sense.
How do I make a beat that would make Wesley Snipes want to like stab immortal monsters?
What I love about some of these is like it's clear what your inspiration is or where you think, as you said, you're not trying to necessarily like do something in the exact same style or replace those songs, but it's clear where your mind was. But then like I'll hear a song and I'll be like, actually, like in my head, like this seems like a really good fit for this other game too. And so like listening to Underground 2, I got it in my head really quickly that like this sounds like the Vector Man title music. Which is a really good freaking song, like the title screen to Vector Man. It's banging. It's very short, so this is like a extended version of it that I like a lot. And then the 2097 XL, which obviously is Wipeout. That just seemed.
Don't know
to
what gave
me,
you that idea.
just trying to clear things up for any potential listeners who.
Yeah, that's fair.
But that one to me also sounded like prime Need for Speed 3, 4 era, like Ron DePrisco, Saki Kaskas, like even like some of those like Junkie XL songs that were there too. Like it's very much to me like I could just as easily see playing Wipeout to this or one of those like crazy long, like 5-minute long tracks in Need for Speed High Stakes in a car that is way too slow. It's like the same kind of.
Yeah, I mean, like there's almost a little bit of Top Gear Rally in there too, I think.
Yeah.
The secret to making music for any late 90s racing game is just pull up a bad digital clone of a Roland 303 and then just set up an arpeggiator and then just slowly twist the cutoff knob up and down, back and forth to make and then throw some little like drum breaks underneath it.
Yeah.
And you're off to the races, literally.
I'm hearing all of this as you're saying it. It's funny because I was at my friend's place recently, and he is not a musician. Actually, neither he nor his roommate are musicians, but they have a musician friend that just left her theremin at their place.
Oh, sick.
So I was messing around with that, and that's like I'm just freaking twisting my hands and stuff, and I was like, I don't know what is happening here. I have no idea how any of this is working, and there's no like rhyme or reason or any sort of organization to the sounds I'm producing right now, but this is so much fun.
Yeah, dude, those are ridiculous. I know I used to know some guys that were in like a slightly prog-ish rock band, and they had one guy that would just play a theremin live all the time. Like a lot of their lead hooks were written for that thing, and he ran it through a bunch of guitar pedals and stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, it's super cool. I'm just scrolling through the track list here.
It's a long scroll. I think I should point out a couple really quick. Just some of these are very old, like that 2097 XL. Like that project file dates back to like 2016, 2017.
Wow.
And Takedown is a song that's been sitting on the hard drive of like 3 computers ago since 2014. I never really knew what to do with it. There's a spot in the back half of that song where it breaks down for just a second and it's silent before the drums come back in.
Yeah.
I was working on a mix of that one night, like 85 apartments ago, and I was mixing on headphones, and I was listening through it, and it got to that part in the silence, and then I hear my wife yell for me from the other room, and then the drums kick back in. It's because we were having a baby. So it's like,
oh wow,
it was just like yelling like, okay, time to go. Oh now is okay. All right, let's go.
Oh wow.
So that's my like primary memory associated with that song. It's been sitting there. I've never known what to do with it. I've tried like adding vocals, but the mix is too dense and I hate writing lyrics. So I just redid the mix and master pass on it, and I was like, you know what? Burnout.
It's very Burnout.
This is a love letter to Burnout 3 now, what this is.
And the funny thing is, like, even though Burnout at a certain point had the licensed soundtracks that started with Takedown when the series went to EA, they still had some original guitar tunes in that game that were very much like what you would have heard in Point of Impact or the one before. So this, to me, just feels like a continuation of that. Like almost like, what if Burnout just kind of, didn't become this huge EA, franchise, and then got with all the licensed music, which like I do like this the licensed soundtrack to Burnout Takedown, so but this is good.
Yeah,
this is good too.
If it gives anyone any context, I recorded that after coming home from a Cloud Nothings show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Cloud Nothings is great.
Agreed. That was right after they lost their other guitarist, though, so it was kind of like, man, there's a lot of just like there are just whole melodies missing from a lot of these songs. But yeah,
never seen them live. Want to
recommend it, if assuming the world ever starts spinning again.
Assuming that's ever possible. You really captured the shock and horror that a PS2 can't read the disc that I put inside of it with the Discrete Error song. I'm just thinking about that now. Like, there is something unsettling about that song. And there's a horrifying screen when it happens to you. It's like,
it's a bad feeling.
It's scary. Yeah.
When it turns red and your heart just drops down into your stomach juices.
Yeah, I don't know why they had to make it so like violent and
it is
scary.
Like, I mean, that's around the time that they had David Lynch making commercials for them, so maybe they were just in a fever dream kind of mood. But for sure. This is definitely another one that like started as something else but never really became anything, and I was like, okay, what if basically is how most of these came to be. So any of the tracks that have like brackets around them in Bandcamp, like Discrete Error and Memory Card, what else we got in here? I think there's a few more. I should have this in front of me.
Insert credit.
Yeah, that
Loading.
one. Like a lot of those are not. Yeah, those ones. Those are all kind of little interstitials and not necessarily based around one specific game, but more just like things that remind me of other parts of the experience of playing old racing games.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I really didn't think about. Like, I kind of assumed that they were just kind of more general parts of the track list. But now, like, I'm listening to insert credit, and I'm thinking of like the music that plays during like the Scud Race attract screen or something like that. Yeah, it does seem like it could fit for that.
Yeah, I was definitely going for a track screen arcade vibes. It was also a lot of the actual sounds in there were inspired by Kurt Feldman's music for the podcast Insert Credit, which is my favorite games related podcast. I regret going so hard with all the fake crash symbols on here. Like, that would have been funny if I did it once, but I did it like 1,000 times, and it's just too much. Like, there are so many things on this album I'm like, oh, I meant to fix that. Oh, well. Like the snare hits too hard in the first track. There's stuff all over the place that I'd like, oh, shoot, I put this out too early, huh? Oh, well. Too late now.
Look, this is the curse of being, you know, of like, you know, doing your own work and putting it out there. Like, you're always going to feel that way, right? So
yeah, and like once you've, you know, especially when you're doing it all on your own, you hear something so many thousands of times that you don't notice anymore.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's out and you're aware that other people have access to it, and it's like, oh crap, and it puts this like mental microscope on all of the small details that you don't that you're not as happy with as you could have been. But like, I'm not gonna fix wolves on this. I'm not gonna go back and like
Kanye, you know, update,
tweak them and re-upload them. Yeah.
You know, updating the life of Pablo or something like that. Yeah.
He never got around to fixing wolves, but he did ruin waves. That's a conversation for a different day.
So one example of, I feel like, of kind of what you're talking about, of like you being led in a certain direction. This, I learned about this on Twitter yesterday because we were talking, and I was surprised. You almost cut one of my favorite songs here from the album because you thought it was too long and indulgent, which, like, it is long and indulgent, but those aren't bad things. Those are great, beautiful, wonderful things. And yeah, I'm just, Enthusiast is so freaking good. That's the one I played for my friend in the car the other day, who likes racing and stuff, but like, you know, doesn't I don't know, just like doesn't really explore or whatever. And I was like, but he knows that like I do the podcast and the podcast I do, and he knows about you. So I was like, if you're gonna listen to a song, the one I think that would blow you away off the bat is probably Enthusiast. And he was just fucking bopping the whole time. So
that's so wild to me. Like, yeah, Enthusiast is the song. It's the only one that I've gotten specific feedback on. Like, I've had like 5 people on Twitter message me about this track, and I literally almost cut it so many times. Like, I moved it to the second to the last. It is track 30 of 31 on here, because I was like, no one's gonna want to hear this. Like, that's why I bumped Orbital Gymnastics down there so far too. That's the other one that I was like, I shouldn't put this out, but here we are. Yeah, Enthusiast is oh man, okay, so Enthusia is a PS2 racing game
it's a
that
bad
I
game.
know
No,
has a lot of there's a lot of let's say some infighting in the time extend community about Enthusia. One thing that everyone can agree on with both that and Driving Emotion Type S, though, is that they have killer soundtracks. They have really, really good music. Yep. So it was partially inspired by that, like the music itself, and also like something that I think you get a good taste of early in the career mode of Enthusia is some good like lengthy races that are tense because the handling model in that game is unique.
It's like how they say in rally,
really
in rallying, it's like you're not racing against another driver, you're racing against a clock. In Enthusiast, you're racing against the game's own physics model.
I kind of like it. It takes some getting used to. You definitely need a wheel, though. It's very clear that it was meant for a wheel, which makes it really a strange experience on the controller, unfortunately.
For a 2005 PlayStation 2 game. To be like, you need a wheel to play this properly.
From Konami, of all people, I think there's 2 Konami racing games here on this album represented. But so something that I like about the way that game uses music is it will take a track like that and it just kind of loops it and then starts bringing in instruments to like keep the tension building as you go, because it's very hard to get away from the pack in that game. Like, you're usually racing kind of bumper to bumper and wheel to wheel with everyone around you. So I wanted to try to like, okay, what if I just set up one drum loop and one like head bob and bass loop, which it sounds I goofed because anyway, I'll get back to that in a second. Anyway, but then like just let it go for a long time, and how do I keep building tension on that? So I didn't want to just do like a wanky guitar solo because that's not interesting. But I was like, what if I just get way too excited on like a rhythm guitar kind of vibe, and just let it get really sloppy and messy. There's a Spoon song that has a great guitar solo in it that's one note, and it's just like perfect. He just plays that one note a whole bunch of times.
Yeah. And
I love it. And this is not quite that simple, but it is just like going hard on the rhythm guitar idea, just letting that kind of build the energy, I guess, while everything else just keeps looping underneath it very what's the word I'm looking for? Very diligently.
This song is one of those. It's one of those songs where it's like, as parts are added to it, as it gets more complex, it just feels like you're revealing something that you didn't even know was there or was possible. It's like the song probably can't get better than this bass line, and then it does, and then it does like 5 more times, and it's like, wow, it's been 6 minutes or close to it, and it feels like a trip, and it's, yeah, I think, like, to me, it's just the energy of this track is so great, and like I could see it in Enthusia. My mind goes to Test Drive Le Mans because I feel like maybe probably with like the crashing
those
cymbals and everything
races.
like that, it's like
yeah.
A lot of songs in Test Drive Le Mans have this kind of percussion, right?
Yeah,
have that kind of jazzy guitar too, and have the bass. So yeah.
Yeah, so all that guitar stuff was all one take because I did, the whole goal was to do it in one take regardless, and I tried like 4 or 5 different times with just like improving like, you know, a big elaborate guitar solo over that looping bass, but there wasn't enough there because it never changes chords really. It never changes a root note. I did the LCD sound system thing where it's just like, okay, here's a beat and a note, and just like build on that and make it ridiculous for as long as you can. And so instead I just, you know, did a, you know, more simple, more like jangly, more angry and aggressive like rhythm guitar take on it. And I guess the secret to keeping that interesting was just like, what do I play to keep myself from getting bored while this drags on for like 6 minutes? And I guess that seems to have worked. I still feel weird about having put it on the record, but I mean, I guess I'm glad I did because it seems like people are into it. As for the bass line, the only bass that I own is a bass 6, Fender bass 6, which is a 6-string bass with a short scale neck. So it's basically just a guitar, but dropped down an octave. Like, it even still has a whammy bar and everything. You can play chords on that thing. It's great.
You can play these songs with them.
You can play these songs with chords.
Sorry.
But it's got a Fender Jaguar style pickup setup, which means each pickup has an on and off switch. So instead of selecting between pickups, you can just have any combination of them on or off. So I layered like 4 different combinations on here, and then one an octave higher for that doom 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 doom. And it kind of sounds a little bit out of tune as a result, I think, because they're all slightly different, because they're all overdubbed, and you probably shouldn't be overdubbing bass like that. But I don't know. I wanted to fill up that space and make it beefy, and also have enough pick attack and brightness on it that it will like cut through the mix. And I don't know if that was successful or not, but I don't know. It seems like it worked out okay. I don't know if that's something that I'll revisit.
All I can say is I freaking love it. It is very funky, and
True.
there's like this there's this weird like vibe I attribute with like Enthusia and Test Drive Le Mans. These songs are just like sort of funky, but also like very classy. Like it's just like, I guess Gran Turismo Sport actually kind of does this too, with like that whole car showroom vibe that they have in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is the racing jazz thing taken to the ultimate. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's I'm really happy it's here. Really happy I got to hear it. And it's not a long song that feels long, you know, like it's not like I didn't realize this song was probably as long as it is until you pointed out to me, and I was like, oh yeah, this is 6 minutes. I just like it's great. You don't really
6
think
minutes,
about
yeah.
it. Yeah, exactly 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's like, I wanted to, I'm making all of this on my own, but I wanted it to have some kind of like live energy to it.
Yeah.
Which is why I did that. And I think subconsciously I was trying to make like the kind of intro jam you do at the beginning of a show. When you're just trying to, make everybody super excited or whatever. You can either do the big bombastic, like Bixby Canyon Bridge, elaborate builds, or you can just come out loud and just thrashing around everywhere. So that's what I did, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it'd be maybe like, I'm glad that sort of live energy is here, because I don't know, when you're making an album, a lot of it is digital sounds and stuff like that.
Yeah,
because it's all based on like retro racing game music. It's going to be kind of hard to sort of create that space on an album like this, right? So
yeah, for sure. Which is why, I mean, like, I've the clean jazzy guitars at the beginning recorded on a hollow body Starcaster, and then all of the thrashy stuff was done on a Jazz Master, with some overdrive and all that. So I wanted to that was the other thing that I wanted to do on this album, is I think there was only 1, maybe 2 tracks on Real Racing Roots that had any guitar in them at all, and like, that's still my primary instrument, so I wanted to do a little bit more with that. Like, I've been playing guitar for 18 years, and I'm finally at a point where I have decent ways to record a guitar. Now that I'm renting a house instead of an apartment, I can I can mic up an amp and run my whole pedal board and everything. So there is significantly more guitar on this album across it in general.
Yeah. Look, a lot of bands have gone through it, it's like they'll lose a guitar on some album and you'll just be sad, and then it'll mysteriously appear back up again on the next one. Like, this is how I think of like King of Limbs.
Talking about how you get back to Hail to the Thief?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about like King of Limbs to the Moon-Shaped Pool. Is like, there's a point on Moon-Shaped Pool where like Ed O'Brien just goes freaking nuts, and it's like, oh good, we're doing that again. Okay, that's good, because I really missed that last time.
I haven't listened to either of those albums in years.
Moonshade Pool is good. It's good. It's very good. I definitely prefer it to King of Limbs, but
yeah, I feel like that's the general consensus. But I need to go back to it at some point, or we'll end up doing it for Silent Disco at some point.
Silent Disco.
Yeah, I've started saying that shorthand, and I was like, oh, that's actually a thing that people do, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what it means though, but it's definitely a thing I've heard before.
It's like I've seen it at events and stuff. Like there's that classic. I think it was a Vine where it's just a lady pointing the camera at her window, and there's 3 guys in the backyard of the house next door having a barbecue, and they all just have headphones on and they're dancing, they're just having their own quiet little party. But I've also I've been to an event where there is a DJ doing live music, but also there are 3 other DJs doing music that is being sent out to headsets that people are renting. You can tune into one of those 3 frequencies, so everyone's like, it's like, oh, if you don't like this DJ, you just listen to this other one. And I'm like, I don't know what the point is of this.
Yeah, I don't like that.
It's very strange to me, and weird. You can tell by the color of the LEDs that's lit up on the person's head which DJ they're listening to. So you can go I guess theoretically groove with those people, but something about it just it's very
and they start creating little cliques and factions on the dance floor. It's like I don't know if that was the intent. All the green kids are over here, all the blue kids are over there. Well, luckily, I mean, look, there's no dancing anywhere these days, so
yeah.
But no. Going back to the album, what is Orbital Gymnastics supposed to be inspired by or relate to?
That's still roughly Wipeout. I don't know. I found that NASA sample, and I was like, I just want to make a bunch of loud, weird sounds over this. And I think it's the worst track on the record for sure. But there's still just enough aspects of it that are fun enough that I left it in anyway. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. At this point, I'm going for quantity over quality anyway, so who cares?
I was just thinking of Rush 2049 because I was thinking of a game where you can flip your car and crap like that. But I don't remember what the hell Rush 2049 sounds like, so.
Not like this. The name Orbital Gymnastics comes from the NASA sample at the beginning. That's a thing that he says. If you listen at the intro there. Also, speaking of mistakes I meant to fix, there are a bunch of parts where I wanted to cut that sample out here so it's not in the way, but I think I just let it run the whole time, and it's just very strange.
Yeah, I meant to ask you what that sample was, but you revealed it.
It's a NASA recording. All of NASA's audio recordings and all of their photo and video assets are all available for free. They're all royalty free. You can put them in anything and use them for anything, and I highly recommend it because space is cool as hell. NASA rules, and it's just there are a lot better uses than this, but but I had fun, so I don't care. I don't know.
And another one I had the title related question about is It's a New Record Ridge Racer or Ridge Racer 4? What? Because I was thinking of a game where the announcer says that.
Yeah, that's R4.
Okay, yeah.
That
makes sense.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what. Because specifically, there's kind of a breakdown where I added some reverb on the drums because I wanted to make it sound like you're in a room where this is playing, which is going to be a huge problem if anyone ever tries to play this in a room. But a friend of mine posted a video, and it was at an event long before COVID times where he was at some event in New York, and there was just some acid jazz playing while people were wandering around with cocktails and just mingling. And he said it's like being inside of R4 in here because of the vibe.
Yeah.
And so the feeling of listening to that from a phone video recording was kind of neat. So I wanted to kind of bring a little bit of that in. But yeah, there's definitely still some R4 inspired stuff in here directly. I mean, especially with how I opened the album.
Yeah, were any of these those R4 tracks, were they done at the time of Real Racing Roots and you just decided not to put them on that record, or no? Okay.
Nope, I just still like living in that world sometimes.
And look, it's a great freaking world to live in, man. I remember I
Yeah,
heard,
it's-
I don't know if you sent it to me like a year ago or if you released it, but I remember hearing Outran before.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that and Galloping Hornet have both technically been released in the past in slightly different forms. Years ago, when I was first kind of getting to know people in the sort of game audio scene, my friend Megan Carnes started a project, I guess you could call it, a hashtag, a Rescore Wednesday, where you just take some footage from a game and cut the audio out and then kind of write your own score for that. And I had a lot of fun with that. Probably too much fun. I made a lot of those. There's a whole album on my Bandcamp that's even bigger than this one, I think, or at least close to it, of all just rescores of different games, and that's all up there for free. If you want, a ton of not just racing games, but sounds of a lot of different games that are much closer to the actual sounds of those games. Anyway, in there, I did one for, let's see, I did one for Daytona that I fixed some errors in, and that became Galloping Hornet.
Okay.
And then I did one for Outrun that became Outran after I did a little better mixing pass on it. And this was the one that I was telling you about a long time ago, where I was like, I was going to offer it to you if you wanted to use it for time extent.
Yeah, I remember that.
But the song that you use from Ridge Racer 5 is so good that like it fits like the vibe of this show so well that like I don't think anything that I made would be better for time extend.
Yeah, I mean, I like this song, and the podcast theme song thing is always like, I feel like a touchy subject, because like some people get really attached to it and you don't really necessarily expect them to, but they just do, and that's fine. And then you always have like some podcasts where like they'll change songs, and then like people just be like, yeah, when they decided to like change things like that, so it'll like create like this timestamp in their minds of when top podcast got bad, or when the show got bad, whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
And Gammon's a great song. Really, it's just like, how long can I get away with using this until anyone bothers me? I don't think Namco's ever going to bother me. If they do
Probably
bother
not,
me,
honestly.
If they do bother me, I will ask you to help us out.
Sure. But until that day, please, by all means, keep using it, because now it's like every time I actually play Ridge Racer 5, the moment that song plays, I'm like, ooh, time extend time. Like, in the way that Hurt now belongs to Johnny Cash, Gammon now belongs to Time Extend, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's
that's
weird.
The way it is in my heart.
It's weird when I go and play Ridge Racer 5, because even though I'll expect the song, when it comes on, I'm just like, I'm taken back to editing a show mostly. Like that's where my brain goes. Like, oh god, it's like how you can kind of ruin a great song by making it your alarm.
I was just gonna say the exact same thing.
Yeah. It's not ruined. I still love this song, but I hear it so often that I maybe don't seek it out as much as I used to before doing Time Extend.
Yeah. I think technically the song Neo Kobe Pizza on here has also been released before. I put that out as a single on my Bandcamp, and I don't think it even got one download, so I put it on here because it's one of my favorite things I've ever made. It's just some good like late night Toonami lo-fi hip hop.
Yeah.
And the name obviously being inspired by Snatcher, which is in the same world as Speed Kings, so therefore I put it right next to Speed Kings.
Yeah. So having never played either of those games, I just kind of, I think, thought that they were like, we had the company calls and company calls epilogue type situation going on here. And I mean, they're both good. I personally think one of my favorite songs on the album is probably Speed Kings.
Nice.
That's like a really high point for me anyway.
You should play Speed Kings, by the way.
I should.
Recommended.
I should. Well, I have to import it, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, if there are ways if you don't want to do that. But yes, that's what I did. I'm not saying that has to be the way that everyone goes about it, but that is what I did.
Is this isn't
cheap.
going to be a Racing Lagoon type situation where I try to play the game and then I'm upset because I can't understand anything? Okay.
The overwhelming majority of it is in English.
That's good.
It's yeah, I kind of don't even like. I'm not sure why it didn't get brought out here. There can be all kinds of reasons why games don't, get localized or released in other territories or whatever, even if they would work. So I don't know why it didn't come out here, but it did not. But it's most of the menus and stuff are in English. It's not a Racing Lagoon situation where there's like a story and an RPG there. It's just an anti-gravity racing game that happens to have a really cool vibe to it. And is also like I got it like for $5 or something. It's like super cheap because it's not particularly rare. Japanese games are cheap in general. Not a lot of people have hardware to play Japanese PS1 and PS2 games over here.
Wow. Oh well, yeah. I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just easy. You just get one. Like I have an American PS2 and I just use that swap disc or whatever, and it's fine. That's what I do.
I mean that's a thing that you can do. I just have a lot of different PS2s from around the world lying around.
Unfortunately, like I've wanted to just get like a Japanese PS2, which I know probably isn't that hard, but I've just never been in a situation or never remembered to, I guess, when it was available to me. So I just didn't. But
yeah, I mean,
I have a couple
pretty tough
of them, like a couple Japanese PS2 games, so I maybe should do that.
Yeah, it might be worth it. I don't know. As long as you're not doing the swap disc thing where you have to like dig that plastic claw underneath the disc tray. It's like I always feel like someone's gonna break something doing that. I don't know. It's probably fine.
I mean, I always do that. That's what I've been doing for a couple of years. But if that PS2 breaks, that is like a launch PS2, so it had a good run.
Yeah, I've had so many laser assemblies die on me on PS2s and 3s that I'm just like I'm very wary of doing anything to them.
I just have an issue with the PS2 sometimes where it just doesn't realize that there's a disc in the tray, or doesn't, I don't know if that's a laser related thing or what, but it just won't start the game or won't even bring the game up in like that, the menu where you can see your memory card and whatever's in the system.
Oh yeah, the browser.
Yeah. That's what it's called. Well, you did a good one. You did a good one here. This is a good album. I don't know.
If you say so.
I don't know what to say. No, I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I don't mean to just cut this off right here, but yeah, I guess just thanks for coming on and wanting to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. I'm always down. You also had an influence on this record. Like, I think I wasn't sure how to name 24 Hours in France until you messaged me and you were like, "Oh, I can't wait for your Test Drive Le Mans inspired track." And I was like, "Yeah, okay."
Perfect.
Let's see. Coffee Break at the DMV was because you were like, "Oh, I can't wait to do the, in between license test Gran Turismo." I was like, "Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay." Like you didn't know you were secretly taking requests this whole time.
Well, I'm glad that I had some influence on it, and that this is such a good album that it's not like me. Like I didn't detract. I didn't take anything away. Like I can sleep soundly at night knowing that I didn't fuck this one up. But
This is just my way of passing like 1% of complaints onto you if they ever come in.
So on the cover we see a lovely CRX. You told me you had the CRX, right? Or you drove one?
Or? No. I have a Civic Si.
No, I know you don't now, but I thought that at some point in your life you had driven a CRX.
This was this was literally someone brought a CRX SIR from Japan to my side of Seattle on Bring a Trailer, right as my Volvo was dying, and I thought about it long and hard. And I had that tab open for a long time, and it only ended up selling for like, I don't know, $6,000 or something. I really thought about it because it was super low miles. It was beautiful. It was right-hand drive. Like,
oh yeah,
so rad.
I found it in our Discord conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The wheels on that are great.
They are. Yeah. It's in really great shape. But I obviously do not have money lying around, and I didn't have a good way to sell my Volvo. And I didn't know, like, I've never just bought a car from a person that way. I had a car given. I had my old 98 Accord was just kind of given to me by someone who did not, needed to get rid of a problem. And so I didn't realistically have a way to get this, but I was like, man. So I just like sat there staring at that car for a long time. And the illustration on the cover art here was me taking one of the photos from the Bring a Trailer pickup, and then just like dropping that in Illustrator, and then just like tracing all the lines over it as vectors, and building the illustration using that photo as a reference. So this is just a photo of a CRX SIR that I stared at for a long time. And did that illustration of, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And then by the time I was putting this album together, I was like in the process of submitting all the tracks to Sounddrop, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to call this thing. And then one night it just hit me, and then I decided to use this for the album art as well. And I was hoping to I want to give the text treatment a little bit of that like dashboard light.
Yeah.
Like a check engine light kind of thing. So that was the inspo there, because I just really didn't know what else I wanted to do. With the last album, it was easy because it was based off of one game, and I could just use kind of that color palette and the imagery of the jog con and the little drifting car. That was very R4, I felt. But here I was like, I'm all over the place with this, so I don't know.
You could go in any direction. You could do anything.
Yeah. So I did this, and it kind of looks like a weird fake 80s, like what people thought cyberspace was going to look like in terms of how it was represented in media. It's like, that kind of Tron-esque outline.
I mean, really, it's just the Virtual Boy.
Yeah, that's really what I was going for. It was Tellero boxing and Nestor's funky racing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Still need to play one of those one day.
Yeah, I got an opportunity to once at a local game store after befriending the people there, and they had one. They came in and they were like, "Yeah, it actually works." And I held it up to my face, and only one eye worked. And that's a very common problem with those, is one of them just disconnects. And I've heard it's a quick fix, but I still have yet to put a functioning Virtual Boy on my face. And I feel like I'm betraying my own brand by not owning a Virtual Boy, but also I don't know what I'd want to play on it besides that Wario game. And I'm afraid to look at what quarantine price spikes did to them.
Yeah.
Because it used to be you could get one in decent shape for like $100, which is not that bad, all things considered, in terms of like rare old game hardware that's quirky and has interesting and tragic history.
It's got the same kind of issue as I think like the 32X and the Sega CD do, where like I'm not going to go through all of this trouble to play Virtual Racing Deluxe, when I could, if I really wanted to play Virtual Racing Deluxe, I could do it on my MacBook Pro at this point.
I mean, I like going through all that trouble for that stuff, because instead of I have a tightly packed bundle of worms where my brain should be, but that's
tightly
me.
Packed. At least they're dense; they don't take up a lot of space.
Well, they use the space efficiently. Occasionally one will peek out of a nostril or whatever, and I got to shove them back in there, but it's fine.
Is there any racing game discovery or anything you've been playing lately that you want to shout out now? Because sometimes, listeners, you don't know this, but we'll do the Silent Discographer, and then sometimes when we both have time, we'll just end up talking about like something. Like last time, probably was like Toge R was like the last one that we spent hours on, and that's how we end up talking about Toge R on episode 50 of Time Extend.
Yeah.
So and usually we'll talk about these things as be like, this would just be great to just include somewhere, but since we're doing a music podcast, they never go anywhere. So that's what I'm trying to encourage right now.
Sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that I would have picked up recently that might be interesting to talk about. Because like mostly I've just been playing a lot of like God Hand and old treasure games. Like I haven't been doing a whole lot of racing games as of late. Let me take a look really quick because see if I picked anything up that might be worth bringing up here. If you can vamp for a second.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what I've been up to lately. I did dabble in Daytona 2001 earlier this week.
It's a weird game.
Which is a very, very weird game. I was an idiot. I didn't realize that game is very hard unless you use one of the cheat cars, and then it just becomes very, very easy. So I'm going to finally beat it now using a Pyewacket Barchetta because it's too hard to beat that game otherwise.
Yeah, and you know about the whole steering wheel thing.
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about the Pyewacket Barchetta is that those stupid three-wheel looking cars.
Not matter.
Yeah, it has so much grip that it really doesn't matter.
Great.
Yeah, you can really just drive it normally and almost never drift, and you'll be fine.
Perfect. Oh, man, I haven't played that game in a long time. In terms of recent racing games I got Ridge Racer on PSP, which I had digitally forever, but I picked up a copy of that. I bought Blur finally. After you've been bugging me about it for like 2 years. That is a fascinating and strange game.
Yeah. For
a lot of reasons. Let's see what else. I bought Street Racing Syndicate for some reason. Have not fired that up yet. I bought MotoGP 3.
Nice. Yeah, I got that one last year.
Yeah, I've never played the Namco MotoGP games. And I like them a lot better than the other ones because they're much more attuned to like, I mean, it's a Namco racing game. That's what I'm here for. Yeah,
the Namco MotoGP series is a little bit more arcadey, and honestly, like technically not really pushing the same sort of boundaries that the Climax games were on Xbox.
No,
like those games
it's a different thing.
Yeah, they're very different. Although, what makes MotoGP 3 really weird is that it's basically. I don't have any proof behind this. I need to look into it, but I feel like they just took that game and replaced the bikes with cars and made our Racing Evolution because like it feels exactly the same. The menu layout is exactly the same.
I'm glad that it's not just me then because I was like, this feels a lot like our Racing Evolution and not like Ridge Racer, which is fine. It'd be weird if it felt like Ridge Racer, but
yeah,
no,
it totally is.
I'm still trying to hunt down a copy of Critical Velocity. I really, really want to copy that, and it's getting hard to find, and it makes me sad because that is a really cool, weird game with a ridiculously good jazzy soundtrack and just general strangeness in the ways that only PS2 games can be strange.
I don't know anything about that one.
Yeah, it's a Namco racing game that never came out here.
Ah, Jesus. Why you gotta do me like that, Namco?
But it's it is a bit more, let's say, narrative focused, but kind of in the way that in a different way from our Racing Evolution. It's like it's a bit more built into the world. It's a lot of like it's almost closer to the Wheelman or like a driver
or
game.
This looks like I'm getting like Midtown Madness or the Super Runabout police chases. I'm getting those vibes from this.
Yeah, I think it's weird. I think it's more interesting than than Midtown Madness personally, because I've never really known what to do with Midtown Madness.
Oh, this is the game that has the devil car, the Crenale, in it. That's not a Ridge Racer game. Okay, this is where that image comes from. Got it.
Yeah, I think it uses kind of a similar driving model as I understand, though. It is a fascinatingly strange game, and it is getting very frustratingly difficult to find at this point. And I want to see if I've got a couple local import shops I want to check next weekend, and if they don't have it, or I might just go back to like trolling eBay or like Yahoo Auctions Japan now that some of the shipping options have opened back up.
Oh, very cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, for the last year, it's been damn near impossible to get anything out of Japan because most of their mail to the U.S. has been shut down. But some of those options have opened back up. It's just most of them are like a flat rate of $20. So if you want to buy anything from Japan on eBay, it's like, all right, the game's 30 something, but here's another 20 for shipping or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have a buddy who runs an export shop out there. I might ask if he has a copy laying around. It's just not listed on the site or whatever. But I don't know. There are ways if I just want to spend the money and get it, but I'm not sure if I want to or not yet. It's around. You can get a hold of it. It's just it's a lot more expensive than it used to be, and it's not as far as old games go. It's not it's not even quote unquote capital E expensive by PS2 standards. This is not a Kuon situation or whatever, but it's still for something that's kind of more a historical oddity than anything else. It's definitely a commitment, but I don't know. I need it for my brand.
Yeah, I seem to remember Shocks copies, American Shocks copies, being hard to find.
That's Brendan's fault. He shocked that right up.
Yeah, because I don't think they really pressed many of those here.
Probably not. It's not expensive. You can still get a copy of Shocks for $10-15. It's just, I think it's just maybe, I don't think they pushed it as hard. The Mini Cooper on the front probably didn't help.
Yeah, they really went with the wrong car there upon the cover of this game.
I think I had to get my Shocks copy on eBay because none of my local shops had it either.
I have a 50 hertz Shocks copy, and I guess I could play it in. I can play it in my PS2. I just gotta use that swap disc. I forgot because I also have a PAL copy of WRC4.
Nice.
And it's even with the difference in the refresh rate, it's fine. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a massive difference to me. But I'm not
just gonna say don't.
Sorry.
Oh no, I didn't mean to interrupt. We had stream delay there.
Yeah, I was just saying I haven't noticed a huge difference, but I'm not in tune with what equipment I would have to be using for it to be a problem versus not a problem. But you are very well versed in that. I don't really understand the whole PAL NTSC thing because I never tried to play those games growing up because we had it better over here. So
yeah, we didn't have RGB, but we did have our games were not vertically squished and they ran at the right refresh rate.
Yeah.
But yeah, just don't try to use it on a CRT. I think most flat panels can take 50 hertz fine. But most CRTs do not unless it's explicitly multi-format. There are a couple Sonys that do, and all the PVMs and BVMs are fine for that. They'll adjust as needed. But generally speaking, with consumer CRTs, don't try to mix refresh rates. Although, that being said, I know at least in the UK, there were a lot of, towards the late 90s, early 2000s, they were making a lot of CRT TVs over there that could handle NTSC signals and display at 60 hertz with a power converter. So eventually, they solved their own problem. So who's to say who had it worse in the long run, I guess. But yeah, it's always weird. For whatever reason, the Genesis core, Genesis / Mega Drive core of the Mister, at least on the firmware that I have mine on right now, always, every time I load up a new game, it defaults to PAL. So I have to go swap that every single time because you get, with some games it just works and it's just slow and squished and awkward. But some games will yell at you and be like, this is designed for an NTSC system. So I have to swap the region really quick. It's very strange, but anyway.
This game was designed for use in a Sega Dreamcast console.
Yes. Graffiti is art, however.
Graffiti is
an act of vandalism. Is even better art.
That is a great example of cover your ass in the gaming industry.
Yeah, exactly. That's classic. It's that and arcade machines that upon boot say
when
if you are playing this outside, well, it's that or the if you are playing this computer video game outside of the nation of Japan, you are involved in a crime.
Yeah, God, the amount of
seen
crimes
a lot of Twitter headers
that I've been implicit in just because I wanted to play Scud Race in the year 2020.
Don't you love copyright laws and international IP disagreements?
Make everything better.
That's great.
Well, Andrew, I guess before we wrap things up, we should tell the fine folks where you can get this album that you made, and also where they can find the things that you do and get in touch with you and tell you how much they love it.
Aw. Yeah, it's everywhere. The album is called Digital Motorsport. It is just under my name, Andrew Elmore. You can find it everywhere. It's I prefer Bandcamp because I get paid directly that way. But if you just want to stream this thing or whatever, that's fine too. You can also stream it on Bandcamp for free if you don't have a subscription to some service or whatever.
I looked up the next because you release it on the Bandcamp Friday, which was a good idea.
Yeah, that's kind of just what everyone does now, and it's great because it's just every one Friday every month we all just get to party and buy each other's music, and it's great.
Yeah, the next Bandcamp Friday is April 2nd, and they actually have a website. They have a URL. Is it bandcampfriday.com?
Yep,
which is helpful. So
it's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, since quarantine has started, Bandcamp has started a thing where for one Friday every month, they, for 24 hours, waive their cut of any purchases. So the artist gets 100% of the money. But their cut is already so small. They're so good about supporting independent artists that way that I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, it just makes for a fun, suddenly everyone on Twitter is talking to each other about, their music and all that. And it's a fun day every time. But yeah, you can follow me at Andrew Elmore on Twitter. I'm not really doing much else. I started making some light YouTube stuff recently, but not.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Not much. I just did one little I tried to do an overview on how surround sound works in retro consoles. So that's up there if you want to check that out. I don't know how helpful it actually is. I might have made it more confusing than helpful, but your Super Nintendo can do surround sound natively. It's cool stuff. Anyway,
I'm just scared thinking about surround sound. I just get scared thinking of all the wires and speakers I'd have to hook up.
Oh, it takes 5 seconds, dude.
I've never had
So
a surround sound setup. I'm just
we gotta work on that. Once you get that CRT, I'm just going to slowly transform your apartment into my apartment from across the coast, just with my influence.
Hey, look, I'd appreciate that, and then I can enjoy the music of Suzuki 8 Hours coming at me from everywhere.
Yeah.
That game's got a good soundtrack too.
Get all of the glam rock of Ferrari F355 Challenge just in 5 channels around.
F355 Challenge.
There you go. All of the not quite Guns N' Roses of that game's OST.
Listen, they have the DJ in that game is and I think we covered this on the episode, the Ferrari F355 episode we did forever ago, but he is a famous Japanese radio personality, and they got this guy, and the band that plays the metal band in that game also has some crazy history. So I just love that.
There's a lot of context there that I just jumped right over for the sake of the bit.
Oh no, I'm not. You were right to just go for the bit. I just think it's funny that Yu Suzuki was this is what I listen to in my Ferrari F355, so this is what everybody should listen to in their Ferrari F355.
That's one of the two biggest examples I think of someone making a game just for themselves. It's that, and then what's his name? The guy from Treasure that made Alien Soldier basically was just I'm going to design a game that is for me and no one else. And if anyone else is into it, then awesome, great, good for them. And Alien Soldier is a really cool game, but it is damn hard and very difficult to wrap your brain around. But if you are attuned to that kind of thing, it's like this glorious gift from above. And then, the F355 challenge being the other thing of just Yu Suzuki being like, man, I love driving this car that I bought with all this money that I made from making these video games. I wish I could share this experience and just make a game that is just for me, but also sell it to other people and make this cool, like, triple monitor arcade cabinet. Anyway. Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to lie and say that's not what I would do if I didn't have Yu Suzuki's expertise and money. And
I was going to say, if you didn't have Yu Suzuki money.
Sega in the late 90s, sure, I'd do it
at the peak of their, like, doing literally anything and everything that comes to mind. Just, like, a fire hose of creativity and weirdness.
You don't race in that game. You learn gentlemanly driving, and that's the phrase that keeps popping up in F355 challenges, gentlemanly driving.
Yeah, it's like it's like when GT Sport launched.
Yeah, exactly.
Take a class.
Before we were doing things that made us look bad, we were learning about gentlemanly driving.
Exactly. All right,
okay.
Sorry. I know we keep trying to wrap this up. I've got literal thunder and lightning outside because
God.
So before we lose power and connection here, I'll go ahead and wrap this up. But I don't know. Go listen to our other podcast if you like our terrible banter. If you think this is bad, we're much worse on the Silent Discographer, which is a show about. I can't just read the intro, but we go through entire band's discographies album by album over there, and we are doing that very slowly because it's more of a record when it's convenient kind of thing. And that's the case. Speaking of podcast theme music, where I wrote one theme and I re-record it in the style of the band that we're covering every time. At least I attempt to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to adapt this to sound like Slater-Kinney.
I'm so excited.
Previously, we've done Death Cab for Cutie and Slow Dive, and we keep threatening to do REM. Speaking of Death Cab, the one other dumb detail that I wanted to bring up talking about this album, because I haven't talked about it anywhere else yet. Remember, what's that song on Narrow Stairs that just ends really abruptly when their tape machine broke? Was it Long Division or something? Or Pity and Fear? I don't remember.
I think it's Pity and Fear.
Yeah. I kind of had the digital equivalent of that happen to me here, where I think 24 Hours in France was the first song that, like, when I made that song, I was like, okay, I'm gonna, like, I kind of have something here. Maybe I should actually make an album, and I used this to announce it last summer. And then I didn't make any more music for like 6 months. But the weird, like, glitched out sound that you hear at the end of this was my Tascam interface crashing, and Logic kept recording.
Wow.
So that was unintentional, and I just left it in.
Oh, that's so cool. It's a really just. I mean, I assumed it was intentional because I think everybody who listens to music assumes that everything that happens is intentional. Which
that's
is
the secret.
Not,
it's a series
definitely
of happy
not
accidents.
the case. Yeah, but that's definitely a moment that's, like, kind of surprising. So it's funny that that's how it came about.
Reminded me of like Adrian Blue's weird forced glitch effects on Talking Heads' Remain in Light. Especially in the first few tracks on that album, he does like a whole guitar solo of that sound. Basically, I think I read somewhere they like purposely overheated a sampler to make it start crashing, and then they like lit a fire next to it or under it or on it to make it start doing stuff. That didn't happen here. I just like this interface in the better part of a decade that I've had it has crashed on me. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times, and it happened to be recording that time while I was tracking a guitar, and Logic happened to capture it, so I just left it in there.
Well, something to try for a next album. Just, try to burn all of your equipment and see what happens.
Yeah, just like back when you to recreate the feeling of trying to send your 360 back in the coffin to Microsoft to get the red ring before the warranty ran out.
Yeah,
just
wrapping it in towels. Yep.
Yeah, or do the old Dave Clayman IGN trick where you just drop kick it across the living room, and then you get an email from Microsoft PR being like, "Hey, there's a boot scuff on this. What happened?" And be like, "I don't know what you're talking about. What?"
It was a less talked about casualty with the red rings. The outer shell of the system would just degrade and get all of these marks on it. People don't talk about it. It's true.
Yeah, it's strange. They stopped too.
Mine had a
why.
giant baseball bat, just gash in it. I don't know how that happened.
You can tell it's a very specific shape.
Right.
Anytime you hit something with a baseball bat, it's like, that's got bat written all over it. It's a bad case of bat.
Look, if you get in
Bat
trouble
bash.
with Microsoft because for some reason you decided to, I guess, destroy your Xbox Series X, which don't do that. But
No,
also
don't
don't blame.
Don't vape into it either.
Don't blame us. We didn't tell you to do that.
Yeah. Do not vape into it. Do not hit it with anything. Maybe hold a ping pong ball over it when the fan's spinning
do that.
up so
That's
it floats.
cool.
Like that's a cool
thing
look.
to do. That's a cool thing to do. Yeah.
I haven't done that with mine yet because I don't have a ping pong ball. But
I don't have
I'm gonna try
one, like an Xbox. So, I could bring the ping pong ball over. You've got the Series X. We can make this happen. Just fly across the country.
that. Yeah, just fly 3,000 miles in the middle of a pandemic just to make a ping pong ball float on an Xbox.
Is there any other reason? Is there any better reason?
Like, not even hang out after that. Just like do
No.
that and just be like, all right, well, it's been real.
See ya. See
See ya.
next episode.
Yeah, and then do it again the next week. We'll just sit down and play Rally Sport Challenge 2 for an hour.
Can't imagine anything better.
And then
All
we'll
right.
play Rally Fusion and be like, why isn't this Rally Sport Challenge 2?
I keep seeing that game in stores, and literally for the last 20 years of my life since it came out, I'd see it. Think about buying it for 2 seconds and then not. I've never
got
played
it 'cause
that
it
game
was-
before.
I got it because it was $1 and it's a rally game on Xbox and I had to know. But, yeah, it's fine. It's there. It's whatever.
It's there. Just like this podcast. All right,
Can you say that about this podcast at this point? We've been trying to end this for half an hour. I'm sorry. I need to shut up.
You're fine. I always assume that you have important things to do, and mouths to feed and stuff like that. So you've got business. You've got shit to do. You gotta get started on the next album, on the next 31
already?
on the next 31 racing game songs.
Yeah, that's a good question actually in terms of what's next because I still do want to try and like make some actual like jazzy stuff, but also I've been spending all this time and money on synthesizers and drum machines, and I think I'm just going to play with those. I'm recording everything to minidisc because I'm a parody of myself at this point.
It can't be a racing game thing though, because then you're gonna be like typecast. It's gonna be like, Andrew, here comes again with the racing jazz.
But also, like, will anyone care if I make anything else? Is the other thing.
I think there are people who there are way more people interested in other genres than this one.
Probably, but also like I've carved out a niche. Like I don't think anyone's gonna care if I'm just like I made music that's not related to anything that you're already familiar with.
Just do the Vector Man
know,
rescore.
whatever.
That's where you gotta go next. Everyone's favorite
There
game,
you go.
Vector Man.
Yes, everyone loves Vector Man.
Everyone loves Vector Man.
Definitely me. I definitely love Vector Man. It's just up there, with all the greats of that platform. You've got Gunstar Heroes and Rystar and Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra Hardcore. You got Landstalker, and then you've got Vector Man.
This podcast is over.
Yeah. It was your turn this time.